minimizing charisma, maximizing intelligence, shooting someone in the crotch with a cannonball, thrust, propulsion. It's science-y.
Why you always gotta be blowing my spot up like that? There are my runes. There they are. I'm not mad. Science needs art and art needs science. They both need each other to function properly.
There are ways to figure out what the paper is really saying.
And then I'm ready to get on Twitter and yell at people about doing their own research on...
Oh, hold on there, sports fan.
Kyle Hill, everybody! He's the next generation of science communicator. I'm going to be too old at a certain point to do those terrible things to my body, and it'll be up to you.
He's got like a lion's mane. This guy's amazing. Kyle Hill.
I'm Boo Rambo.
The universe is indifferent to you. Whether or not you have amazing hair, the universe doesn't care.
How are trees pushing past this pressure limit? Behold, my balls. Now we're getting somewhere, but I still don't think it's worthy of G.R.R. Martin's suspender.
I'm totally right?
Post up photos of my frickin' hair? Is that what you all want? No, you don't, weirdos.
Kyle Hill. Is your last name actually Hemsworth? What's going on?
Our resident Thor lookalike.
I prefer Black Friday Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, you know, if you need a haircut...
No, of course not! We're not gonna send Shark... Chat, welcome. Welcome to the facility. Welcome to the return of office hours. Happy to have everyone here. All my members, non-members. There's going to be a lot of new people in the chat today. It's going to get a little spicy. That's fine. As long as you stay civil in the chat. Even if you disagree with me, even if you totally agree with the opposite of what I'm going to say, as long as you're civil and environmental engineering, then I will respond to everything that I possibly can. There's going to be a lot of new people in the chat, so we'll answer some questions up front. But first of all, I'm happy to have everybody here. Today we'll be talking about Terrence Howard's appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast. Why bring office hours back for this B-level actor? Sorry. Because he recently went on the most popular podcast in the world, the video of which now has 8 million views, and he stepped into my domain, physics and engineering, and he said so many interesting things over the course of 3 hours that I felt the need to bring this back and respond. And some of you in the chat, as you can see in the poll, a good 40% of you say platforming someone like Howard is a good idea. Now, I knew I had to say something like this, say something about this, because even my brother, who is not tuned into all this stuff, texted me in the middle of the night. He's like, you need to do an emergency video about this guy. What the heck is he talking about? Is he right? Is he wrong? We will get into it, chat. Thank you for being here. And we'll answer this platforming question in just a second. Of course, if you want to join me here at the facility, that's patreon.com/Kyle Hill. You get to enter the blast doors, which are engineered to resist blasts, not actual fires and explosions. I'll try. There's going to be a lot of people in chat today. I'll try to see and respond to everything that I possibly can, but if you really want me to see something, you can also try Super Chat. You don't have to, even though that light over there is still broken, and I would like to replace it. But thanks for being here, everybody. There's going to be a lot of new people in the chat. Chat's moving so fast I can hardly read it. So at the top, let's just answer some questions up front. Who am I? So you may be asking yourself, well, Terrence Howard gets a platform to say whatever he wants. What are you doing criticizing him? Well, I'm a professional science communicator. I'm an award-winning science communicator. I've been doing this for over a decade. I used to work at the James Randi Educational Foundation, which specializes in the kind of stuff that Terrence Howard was saying. I've been published everywhere from Scientific American to Discover Magazine to the Boston Globe. I've been running my own business as a science communicator for a long, long time. I feel like if anybody can say something about these claims, it's going to be something like, it's going to be someone like me. Flaky Junk with the Australian $5. Don't listen to this guy. He's CIA. Love your work. Thank you, Mr. Electric Card Lunacy with the $9.99. Replace that lot. Any Australian donations I will read in Australian. Also, up at the top of this, I do not know Terrence Howard personally. I have nothing against Terrence Howard. I cannot say anything about who he is as a person. What we'll be doing today is talking specifically about what he says and how he says it. That's all. I have no comment on the man. It seems like, it seems pretty obvious he's had a very negative experience being in Hollywood where he felt like he was being taken advantage of. I don't know if he's had mental health issues because of all that. I'm not going to infer and say that he doesn't or doesn't, but he seems troubled with his experience in Hollywood, and now he's given many significant platforms, everywhere from universities to the Joe Rogan podcast, to say everything that he wants to say. So I'm not going to say anything about the man. We are just going to evaluate the claims like a scientist do. Okay? That's what we're going to do. So it's not personal. Let's answer the poll question here as well. So a full 63% of you say it's net negative to platform a person like Terrence Howard. Now, I've seen a lot of you in the chat saying, well, anyone deserves a platform. That's not true. You don't deserve. Not everyone just deserves a platform to speak to as many people as possible. That's not true. Thank you, Stink, for the $5, smelly boy. Not everyone deserves a platform. Also, not everyone deserves a platform everywhere. Should I be allowed to speak at the Anthropology Colloquium 2024? No. I have nothing interesting to say there. I don't know what they're talking about. I haven't studied what they have studied. I am not entitled to be heard by them. You know? Should we listen to Ted Bundy's view of morality? No, he probably doesn't have anything interesting to say. So, not everyone deserves a platform. And so to give Terrence Howard a platform on the biggest podcast in the world, and to have someone like Joe Rogan basically let him cook for 3 hours and not comment on any of his bizarre claims, really. He did a little bit of it. But to not challenge him more than he did, I think can be troublesome, because then you are spewing potentially misinformation. And as you'll see, what Terrence likes to do is set so many little fires that it would be impossible for someone like me to put them out in real time. So that we have to do this. Okay? So I have identified no less than like 17 clips from this episode that we can go through. My first live ever. Welcome, Willis Way. Yeah, 3.5 hours or so of saying stuff that you will see. Freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. I'm going to steal that, Mr. Nandra. I like that a lot. Okay. So, I'm a scienceman. Terrence Howard said stuff to millions and millions of people, and he's done this repeatedly, that claims Einstein was wrong, he's invented the new greatest technology, etc., etc. And when it goes out to so many people at such a scale and scope, it can be problematic for people like me who try to get out good information about the world. Okay? So, as Dagan says, let the roasting begin. We're not going to roast the man. We're just going to check his claims, because that's what a scientist would do. Nice transition on the music, Kevin. Killing it. Okay, chat. I think I'm going to turn off the music right now. And if you hear something slight in my microphone, it's because I have a fan blowing on me at all times, because I run hot, much like a nuclear reactor. So, chat, this is Terrence Howard. If you're not familiar with him, he's the actor formerly Don Cheadle. He's an Iron Man, Crash, Empire, Shirley. He's a good actor. Terrence Howard is a good actor. And again, I won't say anything about the man personally. I don't know him personally. I don't care. What I care about is what he says when he says actively confusing things. Okay? And as a lot of people are saying in the chat, yes, this is, yeah, he's a good actor. Nothing against his acting. This is the guy who went on many rants on Twitter, formerly X, formerly Elon Musk, that 1 times 1 equals 1. So that 1 times 1 equals 2. So that's where we're starting. He wrote a paper that claims that 1 times 1 equals 2. So that's where we're starting today. We're going to skip right along to about 10 minutes already in, because he spends the first 10 minutes talking about how he remembers himself in the womb, which of course I can't prove if he remembers the womb, but what we know from development and neurology, he might have been conflating some other dreams or experiences that he had. So we're going to start there. Let's start around here. And so now the first thing that Terrence Howard goes into, and this is a through line, is that he says that the periodic table has a better interpretation.
But they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E.
Okay, so that's where we're beginning here, okay? Everyone can hear that, right? So we are starting from a place where he believes, this guy who we'll get into, where all the elements, all color, elements, and music are all related intrinsically. Volume's a bit low. We can turn it. Okay.
Same key of E, 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to silicone, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt, and it'll be 324 hertz.
Okay, so now he's saying that the elements have color and have a frequency. This is okay. Okay, sure.
It's, in that base, if you were to take the angles of incidence or the tones that they create.
I don't know what he means by angle of incidence. So I think, this is a through line in what Mr. Howard will do a lot, is it seems like he has come across sciencey words that he really enjoys and then starts applying them to everything and everything. Angle of incidence is usually used in optics. So you'll talk about the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. So the angle of incidence, when a photon comes down onto a mirror, equals the angle of reflection, which is to say if it comes in, 45 degrees off vertical, it will leave 45 degrees off vertical. In this context, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Their color. Like you can turn color back into sound based upon, it's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long.
So that is a claim, right? That is a claim. Color and the elements, color and music are the same wavelengths, just twice as long. Okay. So if we go to the wavelengths at which you hear music, you can see hertz, which is a frequency, 1 over seconds. And you see the range, right? We're going from 50 to maybe 400, all right? So we're going from 10 times 10 to the power of 1 to 10 to the power of 2, okay? Now, 10 to the power of 1, 10 to the power of 2. If we multiply that by 2, what's the maximum that we can get up to, right? Maybe 1,000 hertz if we're generous, right? 1,000 hertz, something like that, which is 10 to the power of 3. So what hertz, what frequency is color at? You can see the visible spectrum here that you can see, that you're seeing me with your eyes now. This is 10 to the power of 12 to 10 to the power of 15. So we're talking about a trillion hertz, terahertz, to 1,000 trillion hertz. Okay. Now I don't know how well you did in your math classes, but 1,000 times 2 or 500 times 2 is not a trillion. Okay, so we're gonna come up against this time and time again, where Terrence starts spewing out claims that are actionable, that are very, very not true, and then just proceeds without being challenged. And I think that's the problem. People hear up to 20 kilohertz depending on the age, says Synthoris. Well, 20 kilohertz is 20,000 hertz, which means we're still down here, right? 10 to the power of 4. That's 10,000. You have to go up 1 billion. You're off by 1 billion. You can't multiply that by 2. But as we'll see, Terrence is obsessed with the number 2. So that's the first one. First actionable claim, as I see it. We're going to skip ahead because we cannot watch over 3 hours of this. I will literally die. Let's go on to here.
26, he sent it out to 300 different universities.
Okay, so now he's talking about this guy called Walter Russell, and he's enamored with this man. What you should know is that Walter Russell has made no significant contributions to science, but he's made some very interesting numerology, spirituality, frequency kind of claims. And right here, you'll see something that Terrence blasts past, which is, I'm going to tell you everything about Walter Russell, but he sent all of his papers everywhere, and everyone rejected them. Keep that in mind.
When Walter wrote this in 1926, he sent it out to 300 different universities and physicists. And one of the quotes that Einstein says on his deathbed, I should have spent more time reading Walter Russell's work.
Actionable claim. Did Einstein, the most famous scientist to ever live, arguably, did he say on his deathbed, I should have read this guy that I'm about to talk about more? No. Everything that I could find, Walter Russell with Einstein searched in quotes to get them both. It's either talking about Walter Russell's books that no one takes seriously, or it's directly a transcript from Terrence Howard. Nobody is saying this. Don Cheadle's too quiet? Got it. This is not true. Volume up on you and the video? I'm not loud enough? I gotta be loud enough. So, actionable claim, another one, not true. How far does this go? I forget.
That's how, and now they're taking it under their wing, but remember the Michelson-Morley experiment from 1887?
We don't have to go through that. The next, there's too much chat. Trust me, there's 17 of these little clips that I want to look at. We can't go through everyone. Next one we're going to jump to, next actionable claim, is here.
What happened to the other one in this equation? It didn't equate, and then I took the square root of that number. I took the square root of 2, because all this started in 3rd grade. I was arguing with my teacher because we're talking about the square root of 100. Oh,
that's 10. Now, I picked this part of the clip, square root of 100 is 10. I see dead llamas with a 10, thank you. This is something important to understand about Mr. Howard, which you'll see in a second. And I think we're not psychoanalyzing the man, but this will give you an insight into where he's coming from.
Oh my God.
Is that your phone?
Yeah, that's my detox thing. I'm supposed to detox right now.
How do you detox? You detox on a timer? What do you do?
There's my wife got me these things, because I'm supposed to take this.
Okay, so you start seeing connections here. Now, what we know psychologically about very conspiracy theory-minded people is that they have a lot of connections to a lot of different conspiracies. That is to say, if you believe in one conspiracy, you're more likely to believe in more conspiracies. So you'll see that his, lone genius kind of conspiracy trickles into alternative medicine kind of conspiracies, into infinite energy kind of conspiracies, and later on, even governmental conspiracies. Now, this does not mean he is wrong. It doesn't. But I'm showing you this to give you a flavor of where he's coming from, okay? So let's skip ahead a little bit. because I can't watch all of it. I really can't.
Do you guys know that the Earth is drifting away from the sun?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's hard to do with things like this is truly give you a picture of where these claims are coming from, because, as Mr. Howard just did, a lot of the things he says are true. The Earth is drifting away from the sun. It is. That's a fact. Why? We'll get into that. But what Mr. Howard seems to do is take interesting facts about the universe and interesting terms that he likes, and then extrapolates it to something either untrue, impossible, or nonsensical.
Yeah, slightly.
This is the mistake I made at the Oxford, because they wouldn't allow me to bring my notes or anything. So I said the drift was 6 inches a year. It's 0.6 inches a year.
He is correct.
So if you add up how long it would take the Earth to move, and all of the planets in every solar system is drifting away from their primary at this same exact rate.
That is not true. So, second actionable claim. So, the Earth is drifting away from the sun. He's going to give a different reason for this, and he's going to make the incorrect math on this. But the Earth is drifting away from the sun. Why? Well, when Earth was created in an accretion disk around the sun, this big rotating disk of gas and dust and planetesimals and other rocks and elements from supernovas and that kind of thing, started spinning around the sun, and little bits started accreting or coming together and sticking together, and with gravity, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then once they get bigger, they start sucking in their own little specks of dust and rock and stuff like that, and then they start becoming from planetesimals to planets, and then we have the planets of our solar system. Now, if everything about the sun stayed the same, okay? If everything about the sun stayed the same, then all planets in all solar systems would fall into their stars and be destroyed. And that is because because of the conservation of momentum, because of how the other planets pull on each other gravitationally as they're going around the sun. Because space isn't truly a void, there is some pressure in the void, some particles in the void. There'd be drag. So there's gravitational drag, there's drag, and over time these planets would be slowed down and fall into their stars. But the Earth is drifting away. Why? Because the sun isn't remaining the same. It is losing mass. It is losing a lot of mass. So the sun is a giant fusion reactor, and it takes hydrogen and helium and it fuses it, and that energy pushes back out against gravity. That's what keeps a star roughly circular. But as it does, not roughly circular, basically perfectly circular. But it does this, it does millions and millions of kilograms of fusion every year. And so the sun is getting lighter. And so the effect, so the force of gravity between the sun and other planets is getting smaller. And that is why the planets are drifting away. Now, everything that I said, I believe you can follow. Sun has gravity. Sun gets smaller, gravity gets smaller, Earth goes away. This is what Mr. Howard has to say.
Like 1.5 centimeters. So this is a universal expansion.
That's not true. So he is claiming that this is an expansion of the universe effect, which we know and we can measure from the redshift and blue shift of galaxies that we see outside of our own. That is not universal. To say it's universal is a huge claim. That is wrong.
That's happening.
Where does this mass of the sun go? Says David Andrews. During a fusion reaction, mass is translated directly into energy according to E equals mc squared. This is because of a mass defect. Two atoms separately weigh more than the atom after it fuses. And this is called the mass defect. Where does this mass go? Directly into energy, and that is what fusion energy is all about. And that fusion energy, thermal radiation pushes out against the forces of gravity, so you have this tremendous amount of mass in the sun. Gravity pulls it inward at all points, but the thermal radiation is pushing it outward at all points, and that's how you get a star. Do I sound more coherent?
With everything moving away, so them saying and the Webb telescope has proven that those galaxies couldn't have formed 13, 14.
Okay, so now he's taken the recent discoveries of the Webb telescope, saying these things couldn't have formed. That's not actually what it said. I have a podcast on that. You can watch that.
Billion years ago. But if you would just add up linearly how long it would take the Earth to go from the sun to 93 million miles away.
Okay, so this is the second actionable claim. He is making this incorrect assumption. Now he's assuming that when the Earth formed, it started at the sun, which isn't true, and that it has been slowly moving away at the same rate to where it is today, 1 AU or 93 million miles away. He is correct about that. But what he is incorrect about is taking that simple division and assumption and applying it and then making a weird claim.
It's 9 trillion. Hold on.
Let's go.
I did all of the little calculations.
Okay, so the second part that I want to show you about the state of Mr. Howard's mindset is coming up right here.
These are not little calculations.
Hold on.
To be fair, that is a super, super simple calculation. You take the rate of expansion, and I'm doing his math now, but you take the rate of, you divide 1 AU, 93 million miles, by the rate of expansion, which is 1.6 centimeters per year, or whatever he said, and then you, if you divide those numbers, you get the number of years. That is a very simple calculation, Joe. Sorry.
I love that expression, but
well, man, don't turn my phone off. Don't do that.
Don't turn my phone off. Who's he talking to?
Every time I get ready, well, because I know they're watching me right now. And they're mad at me.
Who's they?
The people that want that. Our entire world economy is based off.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no. So this is the second part that should give a lens to what we're talking about. This happens more than once in this podcast, where he claims that the forces that be can remotely shut off his phone so that he can't use his calculator, or he can't show one of his slides. That is a conspiracy-oriented mindset, right? And so right off the bat, you really do have to take everything that someone like this says with a grain of salt, because it's claim after claim after claim after claim after claim.
Of the politicians and the authorities that give the politicians their accreditation. And those authorities, those universities, are all based, their entire curriculum is based off the Platonic solids. And our world.
What?
World economy is based off of 1 × 1 = 1.
You think they?
Now, when he says that, again, I don't want to psychoanalyze the man. Yeah, no, Aaron, there's definitely some coded anti-Semitism in here. But look, again, I don't know the man personally, but when you say stuff with an obvious disdain for expertise and other scientists, and you'll see it later on in the podcast, when you say it with such hubris, that's when it starts to be like, okay, he doesn't sound like a scientist, right? You know what I mean? Where if I don't know something, or I'm thinking about something, I won't be like, oh, you think the world economy isn't based on 1 × 1? What? Anyway. Next claim I want to get into, let's jump a little bit more ahead. Anthony Hawking with the $20 donation. How poor does a celebrity's understanding of science have to be before we're all supposed to demand they be removed from other people's podcasts? Is there a limit? Who decides? I'm not demanding he be removed. And you're getting at the free speech argument. Thank you for the 20. I didn't say he should be removed. But Nander, or someone in the chat earlier, says, Freedom of speech is not freedom of reach, and that's different. This podcast opens dialogue for real science. We are learning nothing. I am trying to get at what he's trying to get at, but I learned nothing from this.
Up with your phone?
Oh, I'm sure of it, because now I have to turn it off for
Do you ever drop your phone? You ever drop your phone?
I've dropped my phone a number of times, but...
Do you ever think that might be what's going on with your
phone?
Then
See, that's one of the few times, that Joe actually does challenge him. He's like, you drop your phone a lot. Do you think that's why your phone turns off?
I buy another phone, and the same thing happens. I'm 5
you get
minutes...
burners?
I used to, but then my wife would think I was cheating.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I don't need that.
So I see a lot of people in the chat suggesting he's anti-Semitic or using coded language is a wild jump. Now, and I see a couple of people saying, oh, unsubscribed. Chat, give me the benefit of the D here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these conspiracy theories have a long, long history of being intertwined with other conspiratorial ideas. And when you bring up they are controlling the world government and the banks, that does not sit in a vacuum. That has a long history to it. That's all I'm saying. You're a clout chaser, Kyle, says Travis S. How so? How? What am I doing? I mean, I went to school for a long time. Can't I say stuff? Anyway, we're jumping ahead. Getting spicy in the chat. That's fine. Look, some of you are getting nuked from orbit. But this is only because if you stay rational and civil, I will talk to you after we're done looking at this. We will talk about anything, okay? And like I said, there are history to these ideas. To say that nothing is inferred, to say that nothing is linked to anything else historically is ignoring history. And we can't do that. Lest we repeat it.
A mass of those of the asteroids.
Okay, which clip was this? Let's see.
So Earth 1 was a planet that was hit by a planet, and that's how our moon was established.
When have we seen that happen in nature?
Well, we haven't seen it yet, right? But these things take a long-ass time, and we don't have a whole lot of ability to see things. Our ability to see things, even with the James Webb telescope, is fairly limited. Right?
Joe is exactly right here. So Mr. Howard is saying, well, how do you know that Earth formed a certain way? I was like, well, Joe is like, well, these things happened a long time ago, and we can't see very many things. Good on you. Epidemic with the 999. Hey, Kyle, love your vids. A little off topic, but have you seen the channel Kurzgesagt? Yes, of course. One of the great ones. One of the great science channels of our time. Granberg, positive claims require positive evidence, and you know what Carl Sagan has to say about that. At least he's not lying about conspiracies like Kyle is, right? What am I lying about? That certain conspiracies don't have histories to them? Is that a unjustified claim? The title and thumbnail is definitely clout clickbaity. It's a still from this podcast and saying he's wrong about everything. Which, that's what we're doing.
Right, which is one of the reasons why they're able to find these galaxies that should not have been able to be formed in such a short period of time.
Oh. You lied about the nuclear conspiracy that it was an atomic bomb, not H-bomb, says Words. Now, Words in the chat is, let's not nuke Words in the chat, and you can stay if you're fine. But you're saying I lied about so there's a conspiracy chat, if you didn't know about this, that the weapons that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not nuclear. In fact, nuclear weapons don't exist. They were instead firebombs. We know this is untrue because we detected the radiation in the air because there were airplanes with scientific instruments. At the time, Japan had a nuclear bomb dropped on it. And I can see that you're also not understanding what H-bombs are. H-bombs are not traditional weapons. They're not fire bombs. They are hydrogen bombs, which means they're fusion bombs, which means they're fission-powered fusion bombs. We didn't have those in 1945. You can read interviews with the man, Richard Garwin, who developed the H-bomb. It's almost like, anyway.
To the extent that they have, which confuses them if they're looking at this 13.7 billion year old universe. These things should be much older.
Right.
In order to be this size, in order to be in the position.
Here's our next claim.
So you believe that the sun is the origin of these planets?
Of all the planets. Every solar
solar system
within its solar system gives birth to all of these other planets. This is what.
So he's not incorrect here to say. So to say that the sun births other planets, well, it's kind of true. I mean, there's an accretion disk around stars through which, like we just said, planetesimals form via just small interactions with gravity, then bigger interactions with gravity, and then they become planets. The problem is, again, Mr. Howard takes this and then runs with it off the track. Hey, Kyle, longtime fan here. Sorry if you've answered this already, but what is your formal science training? I'm sure a lot of people in the a lot of new chatters in the chat also want to know that. Oh, yeah, sorry, I was reading more in the chat. I have a degree in civil and environmental engineering, and then I have a master's degree in science communication, and I've been working, doing this professionally for over a decade now. So yeah, so I have a normal degree and a normal engineering degree with honors, and then a master's degree with honors as well. Don't feed the trolls. Continue with the video. You got it, buddy.
What Walter Russell had talked about. This is what Neil deGrasse and they attacked him for.
Calling out Neil now.
Because he talked about the drift, this natural drift, and that didn't make more sense. And they didn't have the idea of dark matter and dark energy then.
Right.
They didn't even come up with that. And now we understand 4% of the universe is visible,
right.
And 75% of it, 70% of it is dark energy, and 20-something% of it is dark matter. Unperceivable things, and they say that's because they needed to figure out how would they get the spin and create and have the.
He's right here. So, dark energy is. So both dark energy and dark matter, we call them dark because we don't see them interacting with anything. However, with dark matter interacts indirectly via gravity. What Howard is referencing here is the fact that other galaxies that we observe seem to be spinning too quickly. They don't have enough mass to account for all of that momentum. M times V, angular momentum, mass times velocity. So we posit that there is some dark matter that we cannot observe that is interacting gravitationally to make up for the missing mass. He is correct there.
So we
don't know what it is.
Galaxies.
Why do they
the
hold
spiral
together?
Galaxies.
Right.
Well, what my team did, Chris Seeley, who's my...
I think we're off the rails here. Jumping forward a couple minutes to more actionable claims. He's saying... We already talked about this. He's saying the universal expansion rate doesn't account for how the Earth is drifting away when we already did that very simple calculation and simple explanation that if the sun just loses mass, as it does, that accounts for the drift of the Earth and other planets away. Thank you for consistently being an island of reason and sea of misinformation. Been waiting for this breakdown. Thrusty, thank you for the 10. Richard Barbosa, thank you for the 10. Refuting bad ideas is imperative. Ignore the trolls for now. It's okay. If you have legitimate questions, hit me. Okay. wait. You need to hear what he's about to say. Here we go.
The sound was coming through your speaker? Is that what it was? Time for a new laptop?
You know what's going on.
Again, claiming that someone is turning off his laptop or a laptop in the studio so that he can't show you a video. Just a little lens into where he's coming from. Words says, I wasn't saying that nuclear weapons don't exist, just that H-bombs don't exist. No, they do exist. We've had multiple tests all around the world of hydrogen bombs, so-called thermonuclear weapons. Castle Bravo asked Japan about H-bombs. One during the Castle Bravo test had a higher yield than the scientists initially thought. It vaporized a large amount of coral, Epikini Atoll, and that coral fell on some unfortunate Japanese shipmen that were in the area, and some of them died. And Japan called that a second Hiroshima. That happened. Simping for science, thank you for... Oh, Nick's Gaming with the Australian 5, simping for science, thank you. Aaron Reese with the 5. I thought you were qualified to teach purely based on the luscious mane. Well, I do maintain. Kyle, I appreciate your work. Thank you, Vandal, for the 5. I live in Wisconsin, just less than half a mile from Marquette, and I appreciate the debunk. I went to Marquette. Happy to hear you. Demetrius with the 5. Miss you, man. Hoping to get back into the Discord soon. Why aren't you questioning Terrence's education and background? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, he could be a legitimate genius and figure these things out on his own. I'm just, specifically his claims matter. So let's go back to this. He's, again, claiming someone's trying to turn off their laptops.
Government
They do
man.
not want you. We're about to kill gravity. We're about to kill their god, gravity, and they don't want that.
Here we go.
Howard believes that gravity doesn't exist.
Here we go.
Or
from the beginning.
You'll see.
I have 2 groups of vortexes, which are just like tornadoes.
Okay, we don't have to go through this whole thing. Hibim with the 20. Kyle, thank you for helping me grow out of the cult I was raised in. Wow. Your critical thinking in the show helped me learn to question what I was raised in. I'm glad I found your internet voice while I was young. Maintain, baby. Hibim, that's incredible. I don't know what you were stuck in or what you were dealing with, but I'm happy that you're out of it. I'm honored and humbled, of course, to be a part of your educational journey. That's too much. And I know there's a lot of people still in chat that think I'm an idiot, but that's fine. Evaluate me based on my claims and what I say. So what Howard's evidence here for gravity not really existing is that a guy, I have no idea who it is, on the internet made some cool shapes. And out of these shapes comes what looks like Saturn.
Tornadoes, spinning tornadoes that are pointing towards the center. As I highlight this object here, you'll see it.
Okay, so this is the big gotcha moment, all right?
Configuration.
So this guy is positing that instead of gravity, there are conical or cone-shaped vortices through space. What is the evidence for these vortices? I don't know. How do they interact with matter? I don't know. What are they made of? I don't know. Do they look pretty? Yes.
I want to pretend like you never heard of it in group
relationship. See the big moment, the big reveal. Where even Joe Rogan's like, oh my God, that's incredible.
I was confused.
Let's go. Where is it?
2 magnetic fields, all the action.
There we go.
And when I play it, this is what pops out.
Holy fuck.
Wow.
And then when I look down at the top, it makes the actual hexagon that NASA has observed on the top of Saturn.
Now that's interesting, right? Where you can make geometric shapes in space, and then when you run it, it makes something that looks like Saturn, its rings, and the hexagon, right? At the top and bottom. But yeah, that's a hexagon. Yeah, I know. But this is the problem. Spontaneous planetization. No, I know. This is cool. This is cool. But given that these random magnetic fields and vortices have no evidence behind them, we don't know how they work, we don't know where they come from, saying that planets spontaneously can come together without gravity, where we see with our telescopes and with equations and with proven math and science how exactly planets and stars form with gravity, then we need a crap load of evidence to say that this is a better idea. Is it a coincidence that circular shapes that maybe interact in a inverse square kind of way can do stuff that gravity does? Yes. Yes, it's a coincidence. The fact that this happens is not interesting. I mean, it's cool, but it's not scientifically interesting, right? This isn't saying anything. It's not a real claim. Well, what if all these vortices in a certain shape can make Saturn? Okay. Is it a better theory than gravity? No. I mean, heck, we looked at the gravitational lensing of light during a solar eclipse to validate Einstein's theory of general and special relativity. We've gone to those lengths, looking at gravitationally bent light. This is in Blender. You know, not to diminish it, but it's not scientifically interesting. It's black light poster on your wall interesting. Kyle, do you think this is a case of unchecked mental illness or malignant stupidity of Dunning-Kruger? Says Rich is arrogant. Now, I cannot psychoanalyze the man. I don't know who he is. I'm not going to say anything about him personally. But I think situations like this happen because you are very privileged. He's a good actor, and he has a lot of money. So he is probably unchallenged in his life. You know what happens when you get a lot of yes men surrounding you, thinking that you know everything and you have all the money? The Phantom Menace, that's what happens. DVS with the Canadian $13.99, thank you. Lieutenant with the Australian 5, I know a person who genuinely believes the 1 × 1 = 2 thing. Have they never drawn 1 by 1 on a grid? Am I losing my mind? Yes, a little bit. If you have one group of ones, that's a 1.
That before, because they were going by Cartesian space at 90 degrees and 45 degrees straight lines, the Euclidean space that they've made up, this orthogonal or church-like space that they've generated because they wanted to promote that cross.
Now, those of you in the chat who were complaining about how I said that they are controlling the world banks and the world government didn't have potentially religious conspiratorial undertones. Does that show you where he's at with this? I'm just saying. These things don't exist in a vacuum, which he doesn't actually think exists. He does not think space is mostly a vacuum, but we'll get to that. These things conspiracy mindsets are a tangled rat king of bad ideas that can't extricate themselves, and they all die in the same bad idea heap. You know. So that disturbed me. Jumping right along, we're already 48 minutes into this. Goodness gracious, chat! If you're enjoying this, if you've learned anything from me, or you like this, spam your favorite emoji in the chat right now. I'd appreciate it. El Rito with the MX100. Given the universe complexity, default position should be of a sort of humbling, I don't know. Trust people that study this stuff. The surest one is about everything. The more you know, they are kind of in the wrong. Oh, yeah, no, exactly. Look at all those emojis. Next clip.
Because I've discovered these wave conjugations.
Again, an example of, I think he found a word that he likes and he applies it to everything. Wave conjugation coming from quantum mechanics and then applying it to...
Every person on the planet that's been thinking about it will now have ideas concerning, but not just us, but all humanoids throughout the entire universe will now get that same resonance. And
Now, resonance, frequency, vibrations, these are all buzzwords of the semi-spiritual. And I bring this up because remember when we were talking about, or the scientifically spiritual, and it leads to a lot of bad ideas. Remember when Mr. Howard was talking about how color and sound had the same frequency, which they don't. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from something like this, you get to something like this. Listen to these frequencies to repair your DNA or to influence your energy field. What does that mean? Or, of course, what I've been trying to do, attract soul tribe. These things are intertwined in the conspiratorial mindset, and they lead you to bad ideas. A lot of people will say, when I used to debunk things like this, what's the harm? If he believes things like this, what's the harm? Well, the harm is when you start having bad ideas, you put your foot in the door for everything else. So you think that color and elements are the same thing. Okay, that's not hurting anybody. But then when you want to get a family member treated for cancer, you go with purple stones instead of chemotherapy. I'm not exaggerating. I have seen this happen to people. What do you say to Jackdaw with the 10? Soul Tribe does sound like a good funk band. I have been in a funk band, so I know. What do you say to the people who are into the conspiracy thinking that think that the science isn't taken seriously? Publish the research and get it peer-reviewed. The likelihood that you overturn all things that we've ever learned about a topic is very low. So prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Das Biggin, thank you for the 10.
Be able to apply it like the experiments with the rats.
Right.
You teach a rat something here in London, and then in New York you find the rats are doing the same thing.
That is not true. So he's saying he's discovered these things in these wave conjugations, then in a quantum mechanical kind of way, maybe spooky action at a distance kind of way, ripple throughout the cosmos and make everyone feel the same thing. First of all, that's not true. It can't be true because information can only travel at the speed of light, top speed. That's top speed for everything. So even if this were true, what Terrence discovered wouldn't be available to the people another galaxy away for thousands of years. So that's not true. But then saying that rats will learn something in an experiment and on the other side of the world they will also learn the same thing is demonstrably incorrect, right? Do you think Rogan should be more careful with people on his platform and who he gives a megaphone? Absolutely. That is the point that I'm trying to make. Or at least challenge him. The I'm just asking questions routine gets old. And does harm. It is so much easier to spew bad information than give good information. Thank you for the 5. Dead Llamas with the 10. Terrence Howard really took a Facebook IQ test and let it dictate his entire life. We don't know that. We don't know anything about the man. George with the 4.99. Finished my first year of college strong with a new love of calculus. Hell yeah. Let's keep going.
Right.
Spontaneously because of the morphic resonance.
What does that mean? I don't know. We have to do, we're already almost an hour in, chat. We got to keep going. Because we're only halfway through this, what can only be described as a slog for me. I starred this clip, so let's see which one this was.
The asteroid belt, because you can't go out there.
Okay, so in this, Terrence claims that you can't go into outer space. Let that just sink in for a second. Skylar Rash, thank you for 20. Huge fan from Idaho. Thank you for the videos on the SL1 reactor. Much more to come. I'm leaving on Sunday to go to an advanced research facility for nuclear reactors. You'll see what that's about later.
They keep talking about going out there. That's like you try and go that far away. That's like That's like taking a starfish from the bottom of the ocean and bringing it up to where we are. Everything expands.
Okay, so he is correct here. He is correct. It is dangerous to bring creatures that evolved under pressure outside of that pressure. That is true.
The nitrogen expands too much.
That is also true. So when you're talking about your blood boiling, that is the nitrogen that is usually dissolved in your blood under a less pressure or no pressure boiling out of your blood. It's the same exact reason why a soda can goes kss, because it's bottled at a certain pressure and the gas is dissolved inside, the carbon dioxide. When you release that tab and it experiences the much less pressureful, it's a word, atmosphere, that carbon dioxide bubbles out.
That animal dies.
Okay. Okay. All right. But how does this apply to going to space? We have spacesuits that are pressurized.
Because outside where Mars is, nitrogen has expanded so much more. The hydrogen has expanded so much more that you will never be able to, you won't even have a spaceship or a suit on that's strong enough to keep your body together.
That is not true. Okay. So what Terrence likes to think about space is the further you get away from the sun, and we'll get into why he thinks this, but if you get further away from the sun, the pressure gets lower and lower to the point where no spacesuit could keep you together. Now, what we know about space is that it's basically a void, basically 0 psi. And it's that everywhere unless you're on a planet or something like that with an atmosphere, or you're underwater or whatever. He thinks that pressure keeps decreasing to the point at which a pressurized suit will explode. This is not true.
And you will never be able to come back to 93 million miles away from the sun because everything will have expanded and you will expand to the point of vacuity.
No.
And explode out.
Space is not a void, says Diligent Waffle. I didn't say that. I said it's nearly a void. What is it? 1 hydrogen atom per cubic meter, something like that. Very, 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 very little amount of matter. But it is not a true void, and it does not get negative in voidness. You don't go negative pressure unless you're basing that on an absolute value of gauge pressure.
So trying to send a man out to Mars is like trying to send a man to live on Venus.
That is not true. Completely different problems. So all of this is getting at his idea of how pressure changes if you get closer to the sun or further away from the sun. So you can't go further out than Mars because the pressure will get so low that you'll explode. Also likening 900 degree Fahrenheit on Venus and crushing pressures to basically no atmosphere on Mars. Not the same problem. Oh my God, we gotta keep going. We can't do everything. I'm doing this for you, Chad. Here we go. Next claim.
And when you have an unlimited potential for growth, you have people that are extremely motivated to make massive amounts of money, and they innovate in a very high way. And then they also implement that innovation in the form of technology.
But their technology is antiquated compared to mine. There's
the other lens I want you to see this through is that he does consider himself a genius who has technology that nobody else has that will change the world. He's the only person who knows this, and it is his duty to change the universe.
No government on this planet that has the technology that I have or can outdo what I have, because you can't outdo the fractal.
Let's move right along to the next clip.
Talk root of 2 in there, and let's walk through.
Okay. So here's
the calculator.
So why is he wearing a square root of 2 shirt? Okay. He is, like I said, many conspiracies kind of rat tail together or rat king together. This is another one. Numerology, the incorrect application of the aesthetics of numbers to the natural world. That is also deeply important to Howard's worldview. Kyle Washburn with the $50 donation. I work in mental health, and conspiracy theory affects a lot of my patients negatively. Thanks for speaking against it. You're an inspiration, not just as a scientist, but also as a Kyle. I would have shown up in Texas for the Kyle Fest if they had more Kyles. Thank you for the 5. KB, thank you for the 5.
And I want you to enter the square root of 2 in there, and let's walk through.
Okay, so why is the square root of 2 so important? This is also the danger, okay, where you can say something that on its face is like, huh, yeah, that is interesting. But you think about it for 3 seconds, and you're like, oh, come.
This loop.
A loop that unites everything from the square root of 2.
That is the square root of 2. I was like, let's walk through this, where the square root of 2 cubed is the same value as the square root of 2 times 2.
Now this, I will be totally honest, this did make me stop for a second, okay? Where the square root of 2 cubed, not squared, but cubed, is the same as the square root of 2 times 2. And on the face of it, I was like, yeah, that is weird, huh? Like, how can multiplying something by itself 3 times equal multiplying square root of 2 just by 2? My pronouns are Kyle/Hill. So that did make me think for a second, right? I was like, okay, that is weird. So I wrote it out in standard notation, because I think he likes squaring and cubing things. So you write it out in standard notation. And then you see this. So square root of 2 cubed is square root of 2 times square root of 2. And if I divide it by square root of 2 times 2, it is in fact the same result. It's 1. This is the same number. But if you know anything about math, anything at all, you know the square root of 2 is equivalent to 2 raised to the 1/2 power. So what's 2 to the 1/2 power times 2 to the 1/2 power? It's 2 to the 1, which is 2, which is this. If you square these two things together, the square root, you just get the thing underneath the square root, right? So this is 2 to the 1/2 times 2 to the 1/2. But you add the exponents together, 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1. 2 to the 1 equals 2. Those are the exact same things. Which again, if you know anything about basic mathematical operation, this is supremely uninteresting. But on its face, it's confusing. And in that confusion is where Howard lives his life. Isn't that weird? No? Okay, but what if I change the universe because I'm the smartest man in the world? So that is indicative of his thinking here. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this part is legitimately confusing. I don't even start to know what he's talking about. We're almost done, chat.
Things to where people wouldn't take it seriously and didn't even consider it. So I'm like, okay. And in nature, an animal isn't given horns unless it needs them. So,
not true. Not true. So there's a misunderstanding of evolution as well. A lot of people who don't understand evolution like to attribute a will to evolution, that it wants to go towards something, but that is not true. No animal needs horns. No animal needs wings or doesn't need horns. Evolution simply throws up random mutations and they are selected for or not. It is not a matter of need. Heck, I could make an argument that human males need a rib cage around their testicles. We need that. Why hasn't evolution given it to us? Because that's not how it works. Where did I get that from? Where did I get that idea from? I think from Carl Pilkington in the original Ricky Gervais podcast. We're almost done, chat. 2 more clips here.
If they use it, the world changes in a beautiful way. If they ignore it, we cease to exist because we'll continue down this wrong path.
So do you think that...
So he's talking about his insights that he has had and no one else has had.
Intelligent life in all places of the universe has figured this out already?
If they're traveling here, they have, because you don't use power to go from one place to another. You decouple.
What are you, Gwyneth Paltrow?
From the electric pool. You decouple.
I don't know what the electric pull is, or pool. I don't even know what he says. But when he, again, a sciencey word from quantum mechanics that he is taking, like, decoupling of, a linked quantum system or something like that, an entangled quantum system. I don't know what you scared the shit out of me, by the way. I don't know what he's talking about.
From the Earth, and guess what? The Earth pulls away from you at its speed. You decouple from the solar system, it pulls away at its speed. You decouple from the galaxy, it pulls away from you. That's all you really need to do, but they didn't know how to decouple. In 2 years, I won't need props anymore. I'll use molecular excitation, which is all inside of the patents that I've put in there.
So one of the things about this whole back engineering thing that...
Okay. So, again, this bumps up against those ideas of infinite energy, infinite power. You don't actually need reaction drives, which is to say rocket engines. You can do it all by manipulating the electric pull or electric pool, whatever he's saying. These things are not just wrong. They're impossible. That's the problem. I think his brain is decoupled. Don't comment about the man personally. We don't know him. We are just talking about his claims. We don't know the guy. He could be a great dinner guest. Heck, I just sit there and let him cook. That's what Joe did. But I'm a science communicator. I would listen to him at dinner and be like, wow, your friend is wild. But there's a difference between that and putting these ideas in front of 10 million people, many of whom take it seriously. There's a difference, chat. There is.
Patent.
Last clip.
I'm working with Jeff Yee, another mathematician that we worked, and me and Chris are doing another patent, but we're able to take the radioactive decayed water, the stuff that they're using to...
Radioactive decayed water, the stuff that they're using, I'm assuming he's either talking about contaminated water from nuclear power plants, say in cooling ponds, or he's talking about the tritiated water coming out of Fukushima.
Cool those rods and use the proper angles of incidence and the...
Again, angle of incidence could have some particles flying around, but what he's talking about, I don't know.
Proper field and can reverse that radioactive decay to in days. And
Terrence Howard is claiming that he can use the angle of stuff to eliminate radioactivity. It's not even wrong. I don't know where to begin, is the issue.
Not take 100 years in order for it to do. It's just a change of pressure and motion conditions. When I was talking to Jeff Yee about it, he was like, well, we can use neutrinos coming from the sun, and saw that there was a different relationship, like I was saying before.
Okay, so that is an interesting thing. There was a recent paper saying that radioactive decay did seem to be linked to the distance from the sun. And some scientists were saying, well, maybe neutrinos, these ghostly particles, billions of which are traveling through you right now, could have something to do with influencing nuclei of atoms and making these decay rates, which we thought were constant, change based on their distance to the sun. But this is an open question. We don't actually know. So this is from a scientist actually like this blog when blogs were a thing. So this is how a scientist speaks. What's the moral of the story? The predictable nature of radioactive decay has just become a little bit more unpredictable. Interesting. This is how not a scientist speaks.
I was talking to Jeff Yee about it. He was like, well, we can use neutrinos coming from the sun, and saw that there was a different relationship, like I was saying before, how radioactive decay seems to happen quicker around Venus or closer to the sun. And I was like, is it possible that that's due to the change in the greater pressure condition that's happening, and therefore the electricity is able to have a greater effect upon it? You know, it's like, oh, no, how do you know that the pressure is greater?
Now, this is our last clip. Now, that is whoever he's working with saying an obvious thing, where it's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean the pressure's greater? I mean, you could have pressure from the solar wind, but Mr. Howard is talking about it like pressure at the bottom of the ocean. Okay? Now, this is the final lens through which I'm looking at things, where when challenged or just lightly challenged by a colleague, this is how he responds.
A greater effect upon it, you know, it's like, oh, no, how do you know that the pressure is greater, you know, at Venus? And I was like, oh, you still think there's a void. You know?
I want you to just drink that, the tone in just for a second.
It's like, oh, no, how do you know that the pressure is greater, you know, at Venus? And I was like, oh, you still think there's a void.
Okay, so it is the extreme narcissism on display here that really does make you force him to prove his claims beyond a shadow of a doubt. Otherwise, I mean, could you imagine someone coming up to you and saying something like that? It's like, hey, Terrence, yeah, we're in space, and, you know, there's no air in space, and there's no resistance, and so, like, how are you going to do the thing that you're saying? Oh, you still think there's nothing in space? What? Like, yeah, no, like statistically, I could pick a random point in the sky and fire a rocket straight out, and it wouldn't hit anything to the edge of the universe. That's how much of a void space is. It could even go to and from randomly spaces in the universe, and it wouldn't hit anything over like 1,000 trips. Like, you can do that math pretty simply. But so yeah, so I think that. But there's like a lot of pressure in space. Huh. Okay.
You know, we'll send a probe there and see how the pressure increases, and send the probe out and see how the pressure decreases. The greater, closer to the sun or the apex or the primary, the closer to it, the higher the pressure. The further away, the less the influence. Your child, my child, you get my child around me, I've got a great deal of influence on it.
Completely unrelated, right? Where influence is this ethereal thing. Oh, he's also a fan of aether, like the ancient scientific idea that space, everything is suffused with this field or gas or invisible stuff that influences everything, that could have something like a pressure. Hundreds of years after that idea, we know that that's not true. We can measure these things. You can take a pressure gauge out into space and watch it go to zero. So, in this way, I think giving one of the largest platforms in podcasting to someone like Terrence Howard is dangerous, because it opens your mind up to bad ideas and bad ways of thinking. He gives you so many little fires to put out. It's an impossible job to give enough cognitive effort and put out all those little fires. And so you end up being confused, and then you go to your friends and you confuse them, and then they tell two friends, and they tell two friends. And that's how misinformation with all these little fires spreads like wildfire. And putting someone on a gigantic platform like this is like throwing a match into a dry forest. There's not enough firefighters to put it out. And it makes my job, someone who's legitimately trying to entertain and educate you, that much harder. Chat. Chat. It's a gish gallop of BS. I was going to say that. Tyrannosaurus, thank you for the 5. But I didn't know if people would know what the gish gallop was. There was this, many years ago, there was this famous creationist who used to debate many biologists, and his name was Dwayne Gish, I believe. And he started doing what was later dubbed the Gish Gallop. And the Gish Gallop is giving you so many little points that you have to stop on, be like, wait, what are you talking about? Wait, what are you talking? Wait, what do you mean? Wait, what's the evidence? That he makes it seem like you don't know what you're talking about as a biologist because you have to counter all of his crap too quickly. That's the Gish Gallop, and that's what's been doing here. That's a lot of what's been happening here, in my opinion. Dead Llamas, thank you for the 10. I would love in a future Iron Man comic if Rhodey talks about how to build a spacecraft by using these techniques and Tony just stares at him. Majorly awesome. Happy to have you back, brother. Belated happy Memorial Day. Angle of incidence reversing radiation is the square root of wrong. Woohoo! Put that on a t-shirt. Doc with the 4.99. How can people believe this when we have been out there? Yo no sé. No sé. William Kelland with the 10. This is for the biles, blood, and phlegm that created the earth and the stars. Humors me. This money was earned from a nuclear power plant. Hell yeah. Get out there. Help our clean energy transition. Appreciate you. Otter with the 5. Do you think you'll ever do a video on Helion's energy fusion reactor? I was actually on an email with Helion, and we were going to go check it out, but they chose that other... Was it Real Engineering that did a video with them? I think they went with them instead of with me. So chat, I've already gone much further than I wanted to go. Well, not that much further. But if there's anyone who's still in the chat who is still spicy and wants to ask me a spicy question that you think I will disagree with or anything like that, as long as you're civil and nice, I will take any of those comments and questions now if you have them. Unleash the yappers. Indeed. I had to make this a subscribers only mode, or else it would have been bad. I want a spicy moon landing, says Mike Corleone. I mean, we have reflectors that we placed on the moon that we routinely shoot lasers at and get photons back from that angle of incidence to judge how far away the moon is and how it's retreating from us year after year. So the moon, we definitely have been to the moon, and we put stuff there. There's bags of poop on the moon. What do you think? We brought it back? Kyle, what if, and hear me out, God. Need a lot of evidence for that. Kyle, why is science so sexy? Because science happens to be one of the best, if not the best way to skeptically interrogate the universe and learn about how it works. Unironically speaking, how do we deal with these kinds of claims without recurring to censorship? It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, and I don't have the right answer. But when you have people saying things that are demonstrably untrue, I think you start to have a good argument. Does water boil in space? Yes. Sorry, I had to burp up my whole body. You know how water boils more easily at the top of a mountain? It's because there's less pressure, these pressure conditions and the wave conjugations that only I know about. There's less pressure on top of a mountain, and so you have less air pressure pushing down on the water. And so it's going to boil more easily. It's going to have less energy. It takes less energy to make it bubble up and fight against that pressure. So extrapolate that out to zero pressure, and water boils all by itself. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck? Copa, do you know what? See, now, I was thinking about Terrence Howard. because I had an actual insight relating to your comment in my brain. Do you know what's interesting? I'm going to actually blow your mind here, Chad. Do you know what's interesting? Tongue twisters are a product of your brain. Well, everything is. But tongue twisters twist in your brain, not in your mouth, not in your tongue. Go ahead. Pick your favorite tongue twister and do it in your head. Don't even say it. And you will realize that your tongue in your mouth has nothing to do with you messing it up. It is your inability to make it happen in your head. That's where it gets twisted. It's not your tongue at all. Try it. Kyle, what is the closest thing to a conspiracy theory you believe is true? That Carl Sagan and other authors' paper about nuclear winter was suppressed by the military-industrial complex so that it could ramp up its production of nuclear weapons during that time, like in the 80s. That pisses me off. Did anyone chat? Did anyone in chat try it? Try it. Try the tongue twister in your head. You don't even have to say it, and you still get screwed up. It's almost like all of your existence is in your head. Garrett with the Canadian 5. Good afternoon, Kyle. Is there any subject that you're excited to tackle in a future episode? Yes, I have some good Half-Life histories that are coming up, like the secret plan to destroy the Nazis' atomic weapons program. I just recorded that one. Isn't that interesting, though? I feel like that's something that I discovered. Kyle's favorite single Magic the Gathering card? The two cards that immediately come to mind are Regeneration, because it looks like me, and Master Transmuter, because it's pretty. That tongue twister thing is wild. I know, right? LMFAO, that the tongue twister thing is true. I know, it's weird, right? You say 5 with a bit of an Australian accent. What's that about, says Sir Ralph. I'm trying to get a perfect Australian accent so that I can go to Australia and steal acting jobs from them, see how they like it. But in all honesty, I am trying to perfect an Australian accent for no good reason, aside from stealing jobs from the Hemsworths. Brock Howard with the 10. My conspiracy theory on life is that Einstein knew more about the conversion of matter to energy, and purposely misled science by being as close to as possible without giving observable truth. Well, Brock, you're not that far off. In the early 1900s, when American scientists started figuring out, it's like, oh, if we split atoms and stuff in a certain way, we could release a lot of energy and it might destroy the world? There was actually, I forget when it was, like 1912, 1909. I think Enrico Fermi had something to do with this. I forget. I'd have to relook it up. But in the early 1900s, the leading nuclear scientists and physicists specifically came together and were like, we should stop telling people about what we're discovering. This could lead to like nuclear weapons. And you see how that turned out. But that was actually kind of a little conspiracy. That did actually happen. Like, I don't know if we should tell people this. And that leads us to info hazards, which leads us to a whole nother episode, which we've already done. Flaky Jake with the Australian 5. Boy, is Terrence going to be upset when he finds out all reality is just a mad dream of Azathoth. Don't take our jobs, says Terrence with the Australian 5. Thank you. Liz Calvert in the 10. Chat, if there's any more spicy boys in the chat, I want to hear it now. Kyle, have you seen... does Kyle have a fursona? No, I don't. But I hear that I'm quite popular in the furry community. I have no idea why. No idea why. Favorite Mad Max? Don't know yet. What do you think of the theory that the sun causes earthquakes through the piezoelectric effect, says Ice Sphere? The piezoelectric effect is incredibly tiny. It's an effect where if you apply mechanical pressure to a crystal, it can generate a small electric current. But as far as I know, the effect and the current generated is very, 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 very small. Like not enough to power a wristwatch. So the fact that the idea that that could create earthquakes seems, I would have to see very good evidence for that. It doesn't sound likely to me. And how does electricity cause earthquakes when we know it's a buildup of pressure among plates and then an instantaneous like release of that pressure? None of that seems to be lining up for me. But I'm not a geologist. I just rock. Woo! Info hazards are interesting. Mythbusters was the first place I saw it addressed. Yes, Patrick Stewart, thank you for the 5. There are still things, and I happen to be friends with some of the Mythbusters. And there are things that there are episodes that they couldn't do or didn't do, and things that they've never told you, because once they started looking into it, they're like, wow, that's way too dangerous. We cannot tell people that. One of the things that they found, and they've said this publicly, is like household items that can be easily turned into explosives, like trivially. And that's an info hazard, right? Any news on the fusion reactor that you're excited about, Kyle, or are we still waiting for more sustained output? Love all of you do from one Kyle to another. Thank you, KB. I'm actually going to the Idaho National Laboratory to check out some advanced nuclear reactors on Sunday. I'll let you know. Portal 2 is better than Portal 1 is my spicy take for the $2. Yeah, I think, yeah. Alan Pan is the greatest Mythbuster? No, he's not. No. And you spelled his name wrong. No, he's not. That's why I kicked him off the show. Chickapoo with the Australian $5. Australia is debating the use of nuclear at the moment. Maybe you could be our Minister of Nuclear Power. Hey, I'm an enthusiast. I'm an engineer. I'm not a nuclear engineer, and I'm not a nuclear physicist. I would defer to experts. But I did just give a talk in D.C. about communication in the nuclear space at the Nuclear Energy Institute. So if they want to talk to me, call me up, Blarks and Sheilas. Get my email, hit me up, we'll have a good time. How does it feel knowing Terrence Howard has the power to learn all of this because he's interested in it and spread a lot more good than whatever this is? Huh? Jenny, MDMA. Here's the money for how much I enjoy your Half-Life series. Appreciate you, Jenny. And spread a lot more good than whatever this is. So you don't like this. That's fine. Does it feel bad that he has the ability to spread his message much further when he is wrong about everything? Yeah, it does feel bad. Thanks, Jenny. Greetings. Chris Hemsworth recently ate spicy wings on Hot Ones. If you got an invitation, would you do the challenge? Greetings from Australia. Oh, Austria. Damn it. Yeah, I do Hot Ones, but the interviewer isn't very good. I don't know why the show is so popular, to be honest. Anyway, chat, I used to have a crush on Carrie from Mythbusters. I still do, baby. You kidding me? Chat, if you learned... Now give us your Austrian accent. Oh, come on. No. Chat, if you've learned anything today, if you enjoyed the return of Office Hours today, I want you to spam your favorite emoji in the chat. I just want to remind you, if you want to join the facility, it's patreon.com/Kyle Hill. You get to join our private Discord, see episodes early, like my staff and faculty members did today. It's a new episode. It'll be coming out a little bit later, but you get to see it early. You get your name on Aria in every single episode. You get to ping me at any time of day, and I will respond eventually. We also have video on the natural reactor at Oklo, maybe. It's been on the list, but there's not a whole lot of there. I would have to go to Africa, I think. Chat, if you also want to watch Science and Gaming, the only science and gaming streams on the entire internet, go back to this main channel page. We also have a gaming channel where you can watch me play everything from Fallout to Diablo 4 and science the crap out of them. Chat, I hope you learned something today. I learned that you shouldn't believe everything you hear just because it's on a giant podcast. I know there's a lot of newbies in the chat. I appreciate all of your takes, spicy or not. I appreciate all of the super chats. It's far too generous for someone like me. But I hope that it was entertaining and educational. Oh, Jenny clarifying herself. No, I love this. I'm saying he's spreading misinformation, but has the potential to spread good, but doesn't. You're the GOAT. Thank you for clarifying, Jenny. Either way, I appreciate you, Jenny, for interacting with us here at the facility. Chat, no matter where, I see you next time. Next office hours, if there's another emergency podcast I got to do or something like that. Next gaming stream, next main channel video, next short, next Instagram post where I look like I'm in The Witcher. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your night, your evening, your mid-morn. I don't know any other words for that. And remember, above all, as we try to do here today, be nice to each other. Because this is all we got. See you soon.